If you can hear birds going crazy outside, that's because there's a storm approaching, and I guess they all think it's nighttime. I want to talk about something today which is, I guess, a little bit unusual. Not something that you would typically, I guess, talk about on a channel about photography. And that is the subject of anxiety and depression. You would be surprised the number of people who actually suffer either or both of these things. My mother, who is one of the most positive people I've ever known, has suffered from it for decades. My father, who lives a fabulous life, has an attitude of being grateful for the life that he has suffered chronic depression a number of times. In fact, there was a period there once when I was very small. I think I was about 2.5, 3 years old, when we went on a family trip down to Tasmania in the south of Australia. And he had suffered a number of blows that led him to believe that he'd let his family down. These were work-related. He had moved the family, was expecting to get work. He was a builder back then. Was expecting to get work in a certain area, and it hadn't panned out. And my dad's been through this a number of times where he has felt like a failure, and yet nobody around him, close to him, has had that opinion. But on this particular case, in this particular situation, he felt that down and that hopeless that he went for a walk with me down, I don't know where it was exactly, but it was a river in Tasmania with a bridge over it. And this is the thing with depression, is all sense of logic flies out the window when you reach a point where you believe that there is no hope, that there is no way out. You don't consider the logic behind the decisions that you might make, such as ending your life. And it was at that moment, walking across that bridge, that he had somehow resolved that he was going to leap off that bridge. And apparently, according to my dad, when he approached the railing, I grabbed him by the arm. And I don't know what I said, but I was only a little kid back then. Like I said, I was only 2.5, 3 years old, but there must have been something that I said or something that I did or a look that I gave him perhaps that dissuaded him at that point to jump off the bridge and end his life. Now, the reason I bring this up is, and incidentally, if I think about it, my parents have had very good reasons to be at the mercy of regular bouts of anxiety and depression over the years, given the kind of childhood they had. They were both abused as children, physically and psychologically. My dad, I've written about this before on other blogs of mine, how he was physically assaulted on a regular basis by his father, told that he would amount to nothing, never given any love or attention. And my mother was routinely mistreated, beaten with a leather strap with metal studs in it, and just neglected and unloved. They had horrible childhoods. By contrast, I had a fantastic childhood. Luckily for me and my sister, my parents never stooped to the level that their parents did, and in fact resolved to behave in the opposite way. And so we had a wonderful childhood, both of us. And yet, there have been periods in my life where I have been severely depressed and anxious too. And at times these have aligned with circumstances, divorce, financial collapse, that kind of stuff. But other times there's been no clear indication or no clear reason why I've suffered from these. I'll give you an example. There have been times when, we've taken a weekend away somewhere nice, relaxing, even somewhere exotic, like an island getaway. And for the whole time, I have been riddled with an overwhelming sense of, not necessarily doom, that's the wrong word, but unease. I remember for my 50th birthday, we rented an incredible house, oceanfront house, down the Great Ocean Road, one of the most beautiful coastal roads in the world. And went down there with my daughters, my son, my wife, and my dad. And it should have been a fantastic weekend. We had incredible views. We had a gorgeous luxury home to stay in, fantastic food, lovely wine, nothing on the agenda, but just to relax and enjoy ourselves. And yet, for the whole weekend, I felt chronically depressed. It had been a challenging year in a couple of ways, but nothing that I hadn't figured out a way to resolve. And yet, at a time when I should have been relaxing and enjoying my 50th birthday, I was just a miserable bastard. So anyway, what this all leads me to is that there are times for many of us when we feel particularly anxious, and this can manifest in the form of a sense of foreboding. It can be physically manifested in a lump in the throat, which tends to be how it affects me, tightness in the chest, stiffness in the shoulders and the neck, that kind of stuff. And if left to its own devices, it can become quite overwhelming. Now, of course, there's medication for this sort of stuff, and that can certainly help. There is sort of a more strategic approach where you work through the issues that are challenging you at the time and resolve them in some fashion or accept them in some fashion. There's all that kind of thing. But I have to say that when I really think about it now, one of the best solutions for me, and I had anxiety at different times throughout my childhood as a teenager, which is probably pretty normal for most teenagers anyway. But if I think back now, the one thing that always seemed to resolve it for me was to get out in amongst nature, to get out in the bush. Now, when I was younger, my dad and I did this together. And it probably helped him as much as me, as we would go camping, sometimes for a week or even 2 weeks at a time. We'd take our motorbikes out in the bush, we'd go deer hunting, never got one, but just the act of being out there in the bush, sitting by the fire, riding our bikes, hiking through the mountains, breathing in the fresh mountain air, all that sort of stuff. It always seemed to reset the clock. It's almost as though your body knows that you need to spend some time out amongst nature, that's where we belong. That's where, for the first 400 odd thousand years of mankind's existence, that's where we spent the bulk of our time. Our DNA is hardwired to be outside, and it hasn't forgotten that. And I'm putting together a video at the moment about this very issue of the importance of spending time outdoors. And it's incredible when you look at what people actually do today. And, the average person spends between 23 and 24 hours a day inside, which is crazy. The average office worker spends less than 15 minutes a day outside, which is less than half what the circadian clock needs to reset each day. So, the way we're living is kind of crazy. So I guess the one point that I wanted to make with this short video is that if you're suffering anxiety, if you're suffering depression, if there are issues which are hard to put your finger on, which are difficult to write down on a piece of paper and work out a way to resolve, if it's just the busyness of modern life, if it's just that you spend way too much time indoors in front of screens and that sort of thing, then I highly recommend getting outside. And holding a camera while you do that is one of the best excuses to get outside, because it does a few things, but I think one of the most important things it does is that it kind of forces you to slow down and to see things differently. When you are outside amongst nature with a camera in your hand, it kind of encourages you to look around more critically, I guess, to see what's really there and to imagine how it might look as an image. So it kind of quietens the part of the brain which is always trying to solve problems, which is stewing over problems and ruminating over things that are bothering you, it kind of quietens that part of the brain down and opens up the creative side and helps you to get back to who we really are as people who are inexorably connected to the world around us, to nature. So I guess that's the main thing I wanted to say. Sorry that this is a really serious kind of discussion. But it's worked tremendously well for me. And it's one of the things that really brought me back to landscape photography, was I realized that I needed to get back outside more. And it's not always possible to pack up the four-wheel drive and go camping and, or throw the motorbikes on a trailer and go motorbike riding. And walking around the neighborhood all the time gets kind of boring, just like going to a gym, would get kind of boring. I couldn't stand it. But when you grab a camera and you drive to a spot and you get out of your car with your camera in your hand, you start wandering around, it's very easy to lose track of time. It's easy to walk a lot further than what you would if you were just doing it purely for exercise. It kind of ignites that childlike curiosity in us again. And it kind of solves a whole lot of problems without us really trying. It gets us away from our screens. It slows us down. It gets the creative juices flowing. It exposes us to the smells, the temperature, the sunlight, and all of the tactile elements of nature. And it accumulates over time because if we're taking photographs as well, we accumulate a body of work, a body of creative work, which kind of works as a set of milestones for our reintegration with nature again. So I guess I'm getting a bit woo-woo and philosophical here. So anyway, that's what I would recommend is if things are getting a bit tough for you, things are getting a bit stressful, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling a bit depressed about things, it may just be that you need to get out amongst nature. Nature has enormous healing powers. I can't remember who said it. It'll be in my next video. But no, I can't remember it, so forget that. Okay, on another note, I just wanted to share with you one of my recent acquisitions, which is this incredibly gorgeous bullhead from Really Right Stuff. Let's see. There it is. There we go, level. And it is a beast of a thing. It is beautifully made. It is built to survive a nuclear winter, I think. And the movement on it is just so beautiful and smooth. Everything feels like it's going to last forever. And I suspect that it probably will. You just look at the dials on this thing. They're monstrous. I think it's about 55 mil in diameter, this thing. And I've read stories of these things, literally lasting a couple of decades. And I fully expect this one will too. So I'm super excited to get out and try this thing. Well, not try this thing, because I know what it's going to do. It's just going to work. And that's the whole point of it. It's going to work beautifully. And on this iFootage Gazelle TC6 carbon fiber tripod with the bowl head, I think this thing is going to be perfect. So I'm really looking forward to getting out and trying that. I took it out just the other day, but I didn't really see any images that I wanted to capture, so I didn't use it. But hopefully this weekend I will, and then I'll let you know how it goes. In the meantime, I'm putting together a video, as I mentioned, about the importance of getting outside and what it can do for us, and kind of a little bit of a discussion about why getting back into nature is so important for us. It's a little bit of a creative video, not so much me talking to you here on camera, but a collection of videos that I've found over the last couple of weeks that I hope will tell the story of why I think this is so important and why I think landscape photography can make such a difference in your life. Anyway, I'll be releasing that hopefully in the next week. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope this little chat about this important topic has been somewhat helpful. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.